It's hometown radio for the Central Coast. It is the Dave Congalton Show. Next up, we turn our community spotlight on our friends over at the Meadowbrook Community Church here in San Luis Obispo, where this weekend they have a very important and timely conference on human trafficking. Here to talk about the issue and the conference, we welcome to this broadcast Rebecca Turner and Danielle Veatch. Ladies, good afternoon.
Hello there.
Thanks for being here. Let me start with you, Rebecca. Give us an overview, please, of what's happening with the summit.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for having us. We decided to host the Justice Summit, a holistic approach to combating human trafficking, to basically equip our church and then offer it to the community as a service. And so we welcome everybody. So starting tomorrow night, Friday the 15th at 6 p.m., we welcome everybody. We have general sessions, and then we are featuring a play written and performed by Conti Salgado and cast from L.A. She's a survivor of labor trafficking, and it's her story. And so that's tomorrow evening.
What time?
The play begins at 8:30. The general sessions begin at 6. And so you can walk up and register tomorrow evening.
And is all this at the church?
This is all at the church, Mountain Brook Community Church.
Oh. And let's remind folks where that's located.
That is at 1775 Calle Joaquin. It's up by the KSBY building.
Okay. So you have the opening session and the movie on Friday night.
Yes. And then on Saturday we have continued general sessions from experts in law enforcement, and then we have Dr. Farley will be speaking on the psychology of prostitution and trafficking. And then we have a couple experts from other fields of other arenas. And then we have some workshops, which are basically formed so that locals can decide what action steps they want to take next.
Is there a website to send people to?
Yes, Mb Abolitionists.org.
Repeat that, please.
Mb Abolitionists.org.
I'm pretty serious about this. You want to abolish it.
Yes.
You don't want to study it. You don't want to understand it. You want to abolish it.
No, we're trying to.
We want to do all three.
Yeah, we want to do all three. We're trying to equip ourselves so we can end it.
And Danielle, why does this issue speak to you? How did you get involved?
Yeah, well, when I was back in college, my major was political science, and I was in a political science class, and I remember watching a documentary film on human trafficking and just knew that I had to do something about that. And so that was about 2.5 years ago, and since then I've been researching the issue and working with other organizations such as Not for Sale, International Justice Mission, Call and Response, and learning about how to help fight it. And I was fortunate enough to meet Rebecca Turner from the Mb Abolitionist group and join them and continue to do a local response to the issue.
And why does this issue speak to you, Rebecca?
I think it's a combination of things. Growing up, I always wanted to be part of like the civil rights movement. I always looked back and
you're one of those.
Yeah, I'm one of those.
Okay.
And then
Good for you.
Yeah. And then about 1.5 years ago, I went to a conference in Portland, Oregon, and I realized the prevalence of human trafficking and how it really is modern day slavery.
Yeah.
And then a few months later, I ended up in San Francisco on a trip kind of in the red light district, and it just hit me all of a sudden how many women there weren't there by choice. And so that just broke my heart, and I was like, wow, it really is all around us. And so I came back wanting to do something about it.
And didn't Mountain Brook have a documentary?
We did a hosting of Call and Response, about 1 year ago.
So let's just back up for a second. When we talk about human trafficking, we should give our listeners a sense of what the issue is and what is the concern. I'd like to hear from you both of them. Danielle, let's start with you. What do you say to people about the issue of human trafficking? What is it?
Right. So essentially it's vulnerable people being forced either through threats, coercion, or violence to do something that they otherwise wouldn't want to do. And as a result, the people who are trafficking them get benefits from that. For example, sex trafficking is literally forced prostitution. Right. And the prostitutes themselves don't receive any money. All the money goes to their traffickers or their pimps. Same with labor trafficking. The victims themselves don't see any of the profits, and they're forced to work under miserable conditions and do miserable things, and
typically they're brought in from other countries, right?
Correct. Or they're brought in from other countries. It does happen here in the U.S. to U.S. citizens, but it does happen everywhere. It's easier for them to abduct or coerce or lie to victims or vulnerable people from different areas and take them into a different country because it's easier to exploit them in a country that's not their own.
And typically, from what I've read, these victims go to countries under good intentions. They think there's going to be a job for them or an opportunity. So it's not like, or they could be smuggled in, I guess. And it's only once they're they're in some kind of impossible situation that they can't get out of.
Correct.
Yes, very correct. Often, as Danielle said, another country, you don't speak the language, so once they arrive, often their identification is taken from them, and they're said that if they run away, they're told that the police will deport them, and that that the police are against them, and then they'll also they do their research. They know where those people's families live back home, and so they'll threaten their family, and so many of them won't run away. Many people don't understand that it is modern-day slavery. Just because you don't have literal chains tied to you doesn't mean that you can't run away.
And what kind of priority does law enforcement give this issue?
Well, since the passing of Prop 35, it's definitely more of it's more prominent for the police. They're now, by law, they're meant to address it, and they're meant to be receiving training on how to address human trafficking within California. As far as other nations, they have the U.S. has determined 4 different tiers. There's Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, and Tier 4, and they've categorized different nations depending upon specifications about whether or not the law enforcement and the government are addressing the issues of human trafficking. So here in the States, we are Tier 1, which means that we are addressing the issue of human trafficking, and we're doing everything we can to help fight it. Other nations like the Congo, they're Tier 4, where they're not doing very much to help prevent it, or they're actually participating in it in itself.
So, Rebecca, what do you hope is going to come out of this weekend's conference? What do you want people to take away from this?
Well, I would really want people to take away that it's all of our we all have an opportunity to be part of this fight against human trafficking, and I hope that everybody feels empowered and equipped to participate in this fight and feel like a responsibility to take part of this. We want the entire community to be aware of the issue and feel that they have a part to play.
I mean, is it an issue here on the Central Coast?
Yes.
Does trafficking take place here?
Yes.
What can you tell us?
Absolutely. Well, there's various cases. I'll mention one. A guy within our group, he has a friend within the public health department in Paso Robles, and she just recently met a woman who's 30 years old, and she was trafficked from Santa Maria to Paso over the past decade. And so it does happen here, and she was coerced. She was forced to do it. And I know of other cases. Rebecca can probably shed more light on those. So
yes, and a lot of it is an awareness issue. As we see reports locally of quote-unquote prostitution, the more that I learn about human trafficking is that about 98% of that, of quote-unquote prostitution, is technically human trafficking. A lot of it is underage. A lot of the average entry age of prostitution is 12 to 14 years old. And then in the New Times article today, you'll see Tracy Shiro from Department of Social Services said that, there have been cases locally of underage prostitution, and so that is, that's trafficking. And then there was also the labor case in Paso Robles a couple years ago. So yeah, it definitely does happen. Those are the only ones that I know of on the record, but we are in the Bay Area, and then also, LA are 2 hot spots, and so we're in between. So it is very likely that it's happening here.
We're talking about human trafficking. We're talking about a big conference coming up this weekend at Mountain Brook Community Church here in San Luis Obispo. Rebecca Turner, again, the website is
MbAbolitionists.org.
Is there any fee to attend the conference?
We do have a weekend fee of $60, but we do have scholarships available upon request, and those sessions are divided up. So you can attend on Friday, and that cost will be broken down for you.
All right, we'll be back with Rebecca and Danielle. I'm Dave. This is News Talk 920 KVEC. Stick around. Next week on Hometown Radio, the Advocates are back. We're going to visit with Dr. Don Morris. Also, a week from tomorrow, November 22nd, we will mark 50 years since Dallas. It is the Dave Congalton Show, always your hometown radio talk show. AP Radio News at the top of the hour. And then novelist Paula Houston joins us. We continue our conversation, though, about human trafficking with 2 members from the Mountain Brook Community Church here in San Luis Obispo. Rebecca Turner and Danielle Veatch are here. Rebecca, let's remind folks, please, what's happening this weekend.
Yes, this weekend we'll be hosting our inaugural Justice Summit, a holistic approach to combating human trafficking. We've invited experts from all over California to speak on multiple areas of human trafficking, and it starts tomorrow night, Friday at 6 p.m. at Mountain Brook Community Church. You can register online at mbabolitionist.org, or you can show up in person.
Now, there are sessions on Friday night, all day Saturday, and now what's happening on Sunday?
Sunday, glad you asked. Sunday from 2 to 5 p.m., it's open to the public, and we welcome all. Sunday is when we have invited local leaders who have attended the summit to kind of report back and tell others what they learned and then what their next action step is going to be, and invite the community to join them.
So is that part free?
That part is free.
What time is that?
That's from 2 to 5 p.m.
Okay.
Yeah.
And again, the church is up there by KSBY.
Yes.
Correct.
So what should the call to action be? People are listening. Here we are on the Central Coast. Mm-hmm. This is an international problem. What can Joe do? What can I do? What can the two of you do to even make a dent in this issue?
Right. Well, I think it starts by attending the Justice Summit and learning more about the issue of human trafficking. And it also begins with being more aware of what human trafficking looks like and kind of having an open eye to it. And also, labor trafficking does exist, and there are sweatshops.
Now, what does labor trafficking refer to?
Sure. So under human trafficking, there's 5 different forms of human trafficking. There's sex trafficking, labor trafficking, child trafficking, bride trafficking, and organ trafficking. The most prolific ones are labor and sex trafficking. Mm-hmm. And so labor trafficking is a huge issue overseas, especially because we as Americans desire cheaper products. And so in response, they coerce vulnerable people to work in sweatshops for pretty much free. And as a result, these people are forced to work up to 20 hours a day.
So the same principle as sex trafficking, they trap people with promise of good jobs.
Correct, yes.
Not good jobs, but they can't leave.
Yes. Exactly, right. And so we as consumers, we can demand that our products be slave-free. And at the actual conference, I'll be putting on a workshop called Consume Freedom, where I'll be speaking about how we can look for slave-free products and how we can demand companies or right companies to begin to produce slave-free products.
Well, but give us a taste about that, please, Danielle. How can you recognize a slave-free product?
Right. So I don't have any. I can't show anything.
I can't go to the men's department. Oh, this shirt says no slaves were used in the making of the shirt.
Right. Exactly.
Right?
One day, hopefully.
Exactly.
Well, it could be.
Well, Not For Sale actually has a great app. It's called Free to Work app. That's FREE2WORK, Free to Work. You can download that onto your phone, and you can walk up to any clothing item, food item within a store, scan it with the barcode reader from the app, and from that it'll determine whether or not, based off their data and their information they've been collecting over the years, will tell you whether or not the company has specific policies and specific standards in place that either lean towards whether or not they have human trafficking or whether or not they have procedures and policies in place that prevent it from happening.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Correct, yes.
Really? Mm-hmm. All right. So, there is something you can do.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely.
And so you do that. When you go shopping, you take that thing with you.
90% of the time, yes.
Yeah. Well, and that's a factor in what you buy and where you buy it.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense to me. So people can become informed consumers.
Exactly.
Mm.
Yeah.
Rebecca, tell me something that would shock or surprise me on this issue.
Shock or surprise you? Oh, gosh. I think the fact that it's happening and we don't talk about it more is shocking to me. So thank you for having us here.
No, that's fine. But how do you explain that? Why don't we talk about it more, given the stories that you're telling so far today?
I think because it exists because it's a hidden issue, and it generates $32 billion a year. So it means that can be kind of staggering, and I think a lot of people don't want to talk about it because they don't think they can do anything about it, and it's overwhelming. And we don't know the victims.
Correct.
It's not like they're our sisters or brothers or whatever. Our friends and neighbors aren't the ones being exploited.
Yeah, so we think. But the more we learn is the more that it can happen to anybody at any place. Mm-hmm. It could be me. It could be my sister. They are the women that are out there that are exploited have been essentially hunted down. There's this whole pimp methodology and psychology behind it. And so I guess that's disturbing. And then as far as labor trafficking, I think that I would just like to encourage everybody that we are all part of the problem, but therefore we all are part of the solution. And so as long as we become informed, we can start celebrating those businesses that have no slavery in their supply chain.
Which is the only way to really affect them, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
Now, what about the United Nations? Is there no international organization? Any international movement?
Well, absolutely. There are international organizations who have different programs in different nations. Particularly, I know Not for Sale because I've worked with them. They have programs within 6-7 different nations. And the areas that they target where they develop the programs are areas of high vulnerability. So, for example, over in Moldova, there's severe poverty, and a lot of the women are tricked into believing and taking jobs that look like a better future for them, but they end up, being trafficked into Amsterdam, and they're forced to sell themselves for sex to clients. And so there's organizations like that. Also, International Justice Mission does the same thing. As far as the United Nations, they do have standards that determine what human trafficking is, and so based off that, other countries and nations use that as a guideline when they're convicting or prosecuting.
Well, this
traffickers.
Also negates the argument that prostitution is a victimless crime.
Oh,
Correct.
absolutely.
You hear that argument all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, it's between a consenting man and consenting woman, which if that was the case, that would be fine. I have no problem with that. But it's usually not a consenting woman.
Absolutely
Usually
not.
she's been trafficked or blackmailed or she's being forced to do this against her will.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
And Dr. Farley's presentation this Saturday, she presents at 1 p.m. at Mountain Brook Church, and her presentation talks about how basically she negates that whole argument in such a fantastic way. And she says that basically 2% of quote-unquote prostitutes are the sexually exploited, as you would say, elite, and the rest, 98%, have been entered at the young age of 12 to 14 or have entered under duress or coercion, which would not, which would negate that whole argument.
And then what happens after this weekend? What's next for you? Where do you go from here?
That's a great question. We're hoping to figure that out this weekend as we meet with the experts, network, and figure out what the next steps are for our community and for our state and for our nation.
Do I have to be a member of Mountain Brook Community Church to get involved in your group?
Absolutely not.
You welcome agnostics?
We welcome agnostics.
Please come.
There's a spot for everyone, and we need everybody. We need the entire
Absolutely.
community. So.
All right, Rebecca, one last time, please. What's happening this weekend?
This weekend is the Justice Summit, a holistic approach to combating human trafficking. It starts tomorrow, Friday night at 6 p.m. at Mountain Brook Community Church, and it'll take place from 9 to 5 on Saturday as well.
And I'm hearing that for Friday and Saturday night there's a $60 fee.
That's our $60 fee. We do have scholarships upon request. So if you're passionate about this issue, please email info@mbabolitionists.org.
But Sunday from 2 to 5 there's a free session,
That is free.
which is kind of like a wrap-up of what we've learned and where we go from here.
Yeah, exactly.
And the church is right up there by KSBY.
Yes.
Okay. And the website, is?
MB, as in
M as in
Mountain Brook.
mountain.
Yeah. M as in Mountain, B as in Brook. Abolitionist.org.
Well, I applaud the work that you're doing and keep us posted. Danielle, final thoughts from you, please.
I just implore anyone who's listening to come check it out. Human trafficking is a real issue, and it takes a community response to really help fight it. And so we're hoping to engage the entire community and equip them to come. And this is a travesty of almost every single nation in the world today, and we should do something to stop it. So,
Rebecca, final thoughts?
Yeah, come one, come all. You have a part to play. So please come and learn. And then we will all figure out together what to do next.
Fair enough. All right, ladies, thank you. Good luck.
thank you so much.
Thank you.